Your name's on one of the chairs. I don't know.
On the chair?
No, in front of the chair. I'm sorry.
I'll sit over here. That's me. Okay.
Hey,
Look,
I win.
win.
First try.
First try. Got it.
Are we live?
Brian Morris, and we are here to help you guys with some ideas and concepts and encouragement on building your dream costume. And I want to say that I feel very honored sitting with this panel here. We have some incredibly talented people here today to talk about building your costume, or your dream costume, what you want to put together. We have to apologize up front. Our computer is, we had a bunch of cool stuff to show you, but the computer is locked in my car, and my key is floating around with somebody else today, and they didn't show up. I'm like, okay. So we're going to just continue on, but what we have is a lot of really cool information for you today about what we wanted to do today was to be able to say to you, people may ask, where do I start? How do I progress through building a costume? What are the things I need to know about? What are some of the processes? What are some of the materials so that I can be successful? And to me, that's the most important part. It's not like, you know, specifically what material, but it's this whole process of being successful at it. So let's go down. I'm going to have everybody introduce themselves first, and then what I'm going to do is run through some questions and allow these guys to answer the questions. And what we're going to do is wait till the end. We're going to hold off to the end. So if you have a piece of paper and you go, oh, I want to know about that, write it down, and then we're going to leave a chunk of time at the end to be able to go through and answer all your questions, even if it doesn't come up in the conversation that we're going to have here. So let's start down at the end, and just go ahead and introduce yourself and your involvement with cosplay and what you do.
I'm Loki of Asgard.
I don't think her mic.
Is it on? It is
Mic's
on.
Okay.
I can hear it echo.
Okay.
No, I am Jade. My involvement in cosplay technically only started last year, believe it or not. But I started out as an art student doing ceramics at the University of Washington, so I have quite a bit of range of things to pick from as far as skills, and I've worked with everything from 2D, 3D, traditional, and digital media, so it's a bit of a range. I don't know. How do I talk about everything? So I will leave it at that.
I'm Mary Mann, and I first picked up costuming about 5 years ago. I was a fashion student and just had a passion in costume design and worked from there. I've used various materials as well, including like foam building for armor and Warbler thermoplastics, and my forte is with fabric.
I'm Ryan Wells, and I've been obsessed with Halloween since I was a kid, and I blame my parents for that, especially my dad, who terrified me by dragging me through every haunted house and haunted movie and whatever. I have a niece and nephew who subject me to making their Halloween costumes ever since whatever. And I found out that I can do this all the other days of the year too. And so I started getting into this just recently, and I haven't stopped since, and it's a horrible habit that I love. So.
Cool.
My name
is Brian Morris, and I have been involved with creating costumes for about 30 years, mostly in theater and with puppetry, and I kind of transferred that over to doing into cosplay about 9 years ago, and have done all kinds of different types of costumes and materials and everything. So that's kind of who we are, and you can see that, you know, you don't have to be, you know, I've been in the industry for a really long time, but, you know, other people have just started. And so you don't need to be intimidated and say, wow, I haven't been doing this for very long, I just started. And it's like, that's the best way to do it, is when you first want to get started and get energized and ask questions about people. So let me just I'm going to throw out some questions for you guys, and you can answer them, or if I'll jump in and ask them. But how do you pick a costume that you want to build?
I suck at tests.
Yes, it's like a
You
test.
do what you love. Don't do something that you don't love, because if you don't like your character, you're not going to be into it. First of all, in the build, in the research, no one wants to do homework on on a subject that they don't like. You're not going to be involved. This is going to be your life for the next week, month, years, however long it takes you to put money and time and effort into this, let alone have to wear something possibly really uncomfortable for hours at a con that's really crowded. And if you're not feeling it from the beginning, there's just no sense in doing it. Whether it's a movie or a comic or a game or whatever it is, you have to want to be that character. So love it, live it.
Following up to what he said, like, you really do need to really want to be that character. Like, if you think about going to a convention and being able to just feel awesome as that character, then that's the character you want to do, because you're going to have to hold that passion throughout the building process. And if you fall out of that passion, it might have not have been something that you really wanted to do. The other thing is just planning your budget, because there's some costumes that they might wait till next year because it's going to break the bank, as it were, and there's other costumes that you can break down and build easier than that.
I definitely have to agree that you do really have to love the character. Don't do it because everyone else is doing it. Like these horns, I would not wish on anyone. Tom Hiddleston's statement that his horns are the most uncomfortable hat in the world. Yeah. And migrating through a crowd, not so easy. So it is definitely a love.
And a quick follow-up on that, too, is people ask, what keeps you motivated? Is once you start a project and it becomes tedious, and you're just like, I get to a point where I just can't do it anymore. If you love it in the beginning and you remember what got you to that love, whether, let's say it's a movie. I tend to do a lot of movies. Today, I was walking around the floor as Mars ambassador from Mars Attacks, my favorite Tim Burton movie ever. I just have to listen to some Danny Elfman music or listen to that really annoying act noise, and it takes me back to that first moment that I saw that movie and every 100th time that I've seen it since, and I'm inspired to do that again, and I'm just like, push at it, push at it, push at it, and I just keep going at it again, and that's what gets me through another week or two or month to get to that costume and finish it again and just say, okay, I'm taking it back off the shelf and getting back to that project again.
And sometimes it's just that skill challenge. I seem to be a glutton for punishment. And just, I have to up the ante every single time and find something completely brand new. Like, this is the first casting I've done of this size, but I normally do smaller castings of bird skulls. So the size difference, it's an entirely different process and mindset of trying to work with it, especially because these are hollow cast, and the mother mold that I use is plaster. It's dealing with a mold this big and rotating it for about 10 minutes. So it's a bit of a workout. So between things like that, possible failures, sometimes expensive failures, like right now I'm working on the Witchblade, and it's about $30 a cast, and so one screw up is $30.
Yeah, I would say the two things that we've heard here is, one, your passion, what you love. Myself, I'm into love video games, and you can kind of see I'm dressed for the occasion. A couple of us going to competition right after that, so if we jet out of here right when we end, that's why we're heading to the competition. But this is from League of Legends, and I just started playing a while back, and it was like, oh, this is so cool. I want to create a character. And the other thing that I think about, that goes through my head, is not only what I'm passionate about, but I love to create something that somebody else is passionate about, and somebody else has seen it. So like your ambassadors from Mars, I've seen that, and I'm just like, I can identify with that, and I go, oh, that's so cool. That's so awesome. And that really energizes me to be able to create a character that I know other people are going to be able to identify with. I think the worst feeling that you have after you've created a character, when everybody keeps asking you, who are you? And you're like, have you never watched the movie or played the game? So it's really, for me, I love people to identify. And I think the other thing that Jade said is, you know, you don't have to bite off this costume or her casting or whatever it is. My suggestion is when you first start off, start small. And I do that even. First thing I built was my helmet because I wanted to kind of get a feel and see what it was going to look like and what the whole taste of it was. And then once I built the helmet, it was like, oh, this is so exciting. I want to build a shoulder now. And you kind of build on it. So get those successes down at first when you're starting to build. And another question is people are going to go, okay, I have this character that I want to build. What do I build it out of? So give me what's your favorite building material?
There is 1,000,001 ways to come to the same answer, and none of them are wrong. It all depends on your timeline, your budget, your resources. Try everything. There's no wrong answer. Back up to what you said before, because I had an idea and I didn't write it down. What did you say before that?
About building starting small, successes, what other people
I'll come
identify
back to
with?
it. Next person. My mind's always all over the place.
Well, fabric's one of my first favorite materials to use. There's a ton of stuff you can do with fabric, including like you can even do 3D sculpturing with fabric. Plushies are a 3D sculpture. You can also create armor with fabric if you really wanted to. Other things, like he said, just like anything, you'll come across things that you're just like, how is this working? It just works so well. Like, if you guys know what craft foam is, I was actually able to make that look like leather, and I was actually able to treat it like leather by doing leather stitching, by riveting it with leather rivets, and then sealing it, and it would actually just look like leather. And so there's just things you'll come across that you'll just be like, this actually works so well, and then you'll just discover little things on your own.
I think for me it's kind of a split because I work with so many materials, but I think first choice would be fabric, but anything else that I cannot make out of it, I cast. Normally it's just regular polyurethane resin, but if I can afford it, I'll try it.
So what are the... You got it? What was it?
Where to start? I heard you say that, and it
yeah.
sparked something. When I do characters, obviously we're all some type of form of living being for the most part out there. Everyone's just like, I want this complex, or maybe not so complex, being. Where do I start? You need to decide what the most important selling point of that character is. I usually go for the eyes. I did Tim Burton's 9 character. I don't always do Tim Burton, I promise. I did 9 and subsequently 5 as well, but I figured that their eyes were probably, if I can't get the eyes right, there's no point in doing any of the rest of the costume. So that was my first starting point. And once I was happy with the eyes, I knew that I got it. So that was where I started, because if I didn't get that, there was just no point in doing the rest of the costume. So pick what you think is the most important part of selling that character and start with that. That's what I would suggest.
The weird thing is I don't usually create masks and heads like Ryan does, because if you see his stuff, it's amazing. But I do start with helms. It seems like almost every character, every costume, I start with what goes on my head of building that. And I think that's probably the same thing as what the whole head, the eyes, the character is feeling like. So
But you can also apply that to the full costume too.
Yeah.
Like what sells, like where did you start on this costume?
the helmet.
Well, yeah, the head and the helm, but like,
Yeah.
even if your character doesn't have a head for whatever weird reason that character was designed to not have a head, maybe the shoulders would be where you would start because you feel that's the predominant part of selling that character.
Yeah.
If those shoulders were the
Well,
most
like when I
important
did,
part. Yeah.
I did an anime costume. The character has 9-foot wings, and I did that. Yeah, it was like I was so excited to create 9-foot wings, and I'm like, everybody's going to be amazed at 9-foot wings, and so yeah, that gave me the impetus.
Yeah.
So my favorite material, if I was going to pick a material out, there's a bazillions out there that you can use. Like Ryan said, I love two materials that I use predominantly. Molly, can you bring up the shark? I use a lot of what this guy is made out of, expanded foam PVC sheet plastic. It also goes by the name of Comtrex or Centra Plastics, and you can find a whole variety of, I mean, the stuff is great because it can be heated and molded, glued, shaped, sanded, cut. You can do just a ton of stuff with it, and you can get a whole sheet of it for like 20 bucks, like an 8x4x8 sheet. So it won't bust the bank. You can paint it, you can make it look like metal, you can do all kinds of crazy things with it. So that's a really, really fun and inexpensive one too, that you can build a lot of armor with and jewelry pieces and all kinds of stuff, is that the PVC sheet plastic. And the other one, everybody's always talking about EVA foam. Basically, EVA foam is a closed cell dense foam. A lot of people buy it in floor mats, but you can actually go to upholstery stores and get it in professional modes. It doesn't have any, it's smooth on both sides. This shark right here, this is PVC pipe in the middle, but it's all created with EVA foam. And you can, like I said, you can shape it and carve it and paint it and do all kinds of stuff with it. And EVA foam is really inexpensive as well. So when you're first starting off, it's great to be able to pick out those materials that are easy to work with and that you can get success with. One product I would not suggest to start out with is Warbler. Now that's kind of a big name that's going around. It is an incredibly wonderful product, but the learning curve is really, really super steep. You can do some amazing things with it, but if you're starting out building your dream one, my suggestion is don't start with Warbler. You're going to be really disappointed.
On the comment of that, a good baby step into Warbler is working with craft foam and then Wonderflex and then Warbler. Since Warbler is so expensive, the type of things that you can do with craft foam really give you a feel for how to work with Warbler in the future.
Yeah.
As far as the cost of Warbler, if you have a couple friends that you know are wanting to get into it, the $80 sheets, get a bunch of them, and the price drops with each full-size sheet.
Yeah, Warbler for a 4x5 sheet, 4 feet by 5 feet sheet of Warbler is 80 bucks. So you're like, oh!
But once you hack it down, it's cheaper than if you buy
Yeah.
the smaller pieces.
Yeah. Well, the cool thing about Warbler is also you can recycle it. Everything you cut off it, you can heat it up, put it back through a pasta machine, and you come out with sheets of Warbler again. It's pretty cool stuff.
There's
On
no
there.
waste.
Oh, wait, our computer's here.
Oh, but back to where to start. Unlike these guys, I start with what I believe will take the longest, and this is something that I also did through art school when I was doing multiple projects at once on short deadlines. So if something I knew needed to dry or cure for a long period of time, I would start on that piece first and then process everything else mentally and then just kind of roll it all out in a process. So like the base of this costume, without all the trim and little detail bits, 2 weeks, actual working time. But over the course of the year, I've been adding a lot of details.
We're running into each other. Sorry.
We can make costumes, we just can't do anything else.
Go back on your side.
Go back to where you belong over there.
I don't want you over here. That's why I'm sitting all the way on this end.
You know, it's funny when we run into things here with people and whatnot. One of the I need to plug this in. One of the things that you always put it back down is I have yet to build a costume. I will one of these days that I can sit down in and that I can relax in and I can go to the bathroom in. Fortunately, most of my costumes, I sweat so much I don't have to worry about that. Information.
I sat in the wrong spot.
Yeah. Is there a plug-in? Can we plug in power? Okay, so while we're getting this set up, I'm going to ask some more questions here.
Is there a sheet? I can ask the questions while you guys are
Yeah.
busy.
It's right here.
You're not in costume, you can do it.
That's right.
It's gonna.
Where's the cord?
So if you guys have questions about
Okay,
costume
there we go.
processes, there is a microphone in the middle.
Or questions with you.
Oh, here's a good one. Here's a good question. And Mary, I'm going to point this directly at you.
Okay.
because you're into sewing, you have a lot of material you work with. There is a whole variety of places that I can get it. And my question is, do I custom build something, or should I start with material that's already created, like from a thrift store? Which is the best way to go about that?
So there is really no wrong answer in that case. Thrift store can be extremely, extremely helpful, especially just like being able to buy just like a plain dress and you can expand on it and make it into an Elsa dress. But taking patterns, store-bought patterns, there's nothing wrong with that either. And it's actually very, very simple to alter off of a pattern. From being in fashion school, I want to give you a little truth. Most fashion designers and that make your clothing that you see every day, they're not making their patterns from scratch. They're altering off of patterns they've created long ago. So there's nothing wrong with taking a pattern that you didn't necessarily make and expanding your ideas off of it. And there's also nothing wrong with taking thrift store clothing and expanding off of that.
And a lot of that, I want to add to that, is dependent on what is it that you want made. If it's something that's obviously going to be a huge stretch that it would be a lot easier to just make from scratch, then go that route. If it's something that you know is a mass-marketed product, don't sweat it. Just go get it and alter it however you need.
Quick tip I learned really early in the game for patterns, because I just perked up at the wrong moment. Dollar store wrapping paper. That's what you can design your own patterns with, if you haven't figured that one out yet. No one told me.
And I use newsprint from the art store,
Yeah.
so just drawing paper and tape all the pieces together. You have a question?
Yeah, so you don't know how to sew and you're trying, I'm trying to get better at it, but I mean, I don't want to go to sewing school or fashion school, but I want to kind of I don't understand patterns. So how do you kind of take that step to like not knowing anything about sewing and like what are some things that I could like try sewing that would be like a step into it?
Start with skirts. They're very forgiving because anyone who's going to be staring at crooked seams and any wavy lines, if you can't sew a straight line to save your life, they have something wrong if they're staring at your skirt for that long to notice that. So that's what I
screen's
started
on,
out
by the way.
with. I've actually only
Nobody looked.
had
The man behind the curtain.
just 7th grade home ec sewing tuition, and that's it. Everything else is self-taught, even for custom pattern making. That's all self-taught. And a lot of it really is observation and figuring out what the different forms of the clothing that you have do. And basically, the big thing I look for is that the form of the pattern will always follow the primary shape of the clothing. So like an A-line skirt, all the pieces are going to be kind of the A shape to get that full form.
Thank you.
Yes.
To touch on that too, don't be scared of anything. Yours is really loud. Don't be scared of anything. Each costume that I do, I always try a new thing. I got to the point where I'm just like, I'm doing all these other things. Why am I so scared of sewing? So I started a project that wasn't fitted. I'm just like, well, I'm not going to be making a tux anytime soon. I know that. So let's try for something that's rags and start easy and work my way up to something. Don't start with big expectations, but each project you do, try something new and build on your skills and get to that point. But yeah, I mean, let's say you master foam or you master plaster or whatever it is you're doing, but each project you do, try a new skill. Don't stick to one thing, and then pretty soon you're going to be building great things.
Do you have pictures of your Chamberlain?
Yeah, in fact, that was my first sewing project.
Yeah, let me show you his first sewing project, and this is pretty amazing when you look at this
Thumbnails.
because it's so. When I saw this, I'm just like, wow, it's so cool.
Can I comment on a little follow-up to her question? She was explaining how she first started. I actually first started with fleece and just simple hats because it's 4 triangles and a rectangle. Fleece is a very, very forgiving fabric as well. It usually hides most of your mistakes, and it'll give you like that instant gratification after you finish because it usually looks really nice. It's a great way to toss you into sewing. Unfortunately, to learn a bit more patterning and learn how patterns work, you are going to have to do a little bit of research. Not necessarily have to take classes because YouTube is probably the best source of tutorials, and there's just everything on there.
It's all rags. I didn't matter if it was crooked or whatever, because it was supposed to be. But yeah, I was scared of the sewing machine, so I borrowed my sister's, and I read that book, and I kicked the machine a couple times and spent a couple hours cussing at it. Got it jammed a whole bunch of times, but I eventually got through it. And my next sewing project got a little bit better, and now I'm sewing projects and getting to it. And I eventually gave that sewing machine back to my sister, and I went and bought myself a more industrial one, which treats me a lot better. But the heavy-duty ones are so much nicer. But you don't have to jump to that one for your first step. Start with the easier projects.
I know that you went through, even on these rags, there was a process you went through. Can you talk a little bit about how you made them look like this?
The rags?
Yeah.
I don't understand the
Well,
question.
didn't you weather them? I mean, you
Oh,
went-
well, that's, we're just talking about the sewing, but as far as the weathering,
Yeah, I mean, rags, these were not just rags, because he did some other stuff to them, but it was really simple.
to make them weathered, what I did was a belt sander, which is something I learned in the haunted house industry to make zombies. Basically, I got my sister to sit on them in the garage floor, and I took a belt sander to them, and just basically, instead of taking a pair of scissors, which most people do to put holes in clothing, which doesn't look natural, when you got cut out lightning bolts, is I took a belt sander to it to make it more natural, like wear and tear. And then some people use charcoal. I think I'm changing the color on that. Some people use charcoal, which will get on my carpeting or whatever if I take this off and throw it on the floor because I'm too warm and I'm tired of wearing it. But I use spray paint, just brown and black and different color spray paints, and just I'll lay it out completely flat so there's no folds on it as I'm wearing it. I actually have a duct tape dummy. I don't know does anybody not know what a duct tape dummy is? Okay. What you can do is basically take some old clothes of yourself that you don't want anymore, find somebody that you completely trust to wrap you in duct tape all the way, and then they cut you out very gently out of that and the duct tape is completely stuck to these clothes. And what they do is they cut you out of the duct tape, and this is if you want to get to this process. And then you slowly start to tape those seams up as you stuff them. I use batting, but you can use paper. It just collapses a lot quicker, and you constantly have to restuff it. But as you're doing that, you put basically a stick figure of PVC into that shape, and then you got a mannequin that's perfect to your size, unless you have a figure that I don't. And you can just get a pre-made mannequin. But that's what I use to make my costumes, and I don't have to have anybody stand there for me while I'm trying to figure out, okay, I need to make this costume this size, and for pattern making or whatever it might be. But yeah, that's what a duct tape dummy is. But basically, to paint or weather a costume, if I was to hang my clothes on that and spray paint that, wherever those folds would be, as soon as I move that, there's going to be a big white stripe where that wasn't painted. So you want to make sure you lay those fabrics out completely flat where that paint can get to everything.
Here's another good question to throw out there. Budgets and time. And I know this is like an open-ended, and we're going to say, well, the budget can be anything, but I think I want to be more realistic than just saying, oh, it's whatever you can afford. And if we think back on budgeting and time on a costume, if I want to be realistic, what would I expect? to start off with, and I'm not talking about, epic costumes. I'm saying if somebody's going to start off, they say, is $50 reasonable to budget on a costume? Should I budget more? Should I budget a week, a month? And I know it's specific for costumes because every single costume is going to take time, but just kind of your thoughts on that as far as what am I expecting as far as, I'm going to have to put some money towards this and some time. What should I expect?
If you're doing if you're including latex and like some really heavy-duty materials, you're gonna have to budget a little higher. But if you're doing like a fabric costume, like an anime character that has like a really nice gown or something, I would say like the safe bet is to do $100 budget and then about 2 months of work, and that's a good safe point. You're probably going to go either less or higher once you start actually figuring out what pattern you're going to use, how much fabric you're going to need, stuff like that.
I know, I snuck up on you.
You still are.
Yeah. I've been having troubles finding the right fabrics, even at fabric stores or online. What would you recommend for fabric stores or places to go? Because I've been trying to find purple velvet.
I go
And-
all over the place, and usually I spend about a year collecting materials. So to wrap this also into the budget question, it depends on how much you want of the costume done each time, or are you willing to pace it out? And if the character that you're portraying has the ability to kind of shift details around, build it up. But for purple velvet, there is a place called
yeah, I've been
Distinctive
racking my
Fabric
brain.
that has some velvet, but I don't remember if they have purple or not. Their stock kind of rotates. It's .com.
You should also keep in mind that like fabric stores do carry seasonal, so like there will be seasons for velvet and there will be non-seasons for velvet. I've seen purple velveteen at Joann's before.
Yeah,
It's got the stretch to it though, and that's probably not what you're looking for.
No.
There's various different types of websites. What was the one you said?
Distinctive Fabric.
Distinctive Fabrics. There's fabric.com. There's like if you just you can even check on Etsy or eBay sometimes.
And
just
thrift stores.
Thrift stores too.
Look
I'm
for
a thrift store
draperies.
hound. Most of this is from a thrift store.
Yeah,
awesome.
linens are great sources. Also, large skirts, gowns if you can find them. Where else have I seen?
There's also, I'm locally here down in Renton, and we have this cool store that is imported, almost everything they import from India. And so a lot of times we kind of fall back on the major corporate chains, but if you look on, if you go on the internet locally, are there fabric stores that are bringing in fabrics from other countries, that are specifically, maybe they just sell to people who are, who want to do Indian costumes or clothing or whatnot, but they will have stuff that you will not find anywhere else. You will not be able to go into Joann's and find the stuff that they import directly in from India, and it's usually even less expensive. So look for those ethnic type stores that can provide you different kinds. And if you're in the Seattle area, we are, Pacific Iron and Fabric is right down on 4th Avenue. They have the most wonderful selection of material that you will not find almost anywhere else. It's a geared towards industrial or the commercial, but they have wonderful fabric there where, again, you won't find it at Joann's Fabric, but it's a great place.
Quick funny story about exactly what you're talking about is I wanted my Martian ambassador to have that plastic molded spacesuit look, and I was having trouble finding the spacesuit look for that fabric. And so what I did is I searched online overseas, so if you have the time for this project, we all have varied backgrounds, so we're budgeting and so on. For me, time is money. So I don't mind skipping the thrift stores. So what I did is I basically looked for a certain color and kind of just ignored looking for green, plastic, whatever. And I searched through images instead of words because I don't know what certain things are supposed to be called because I'm not from a sewing background.
Right.
And what I ended up finding this on, which is something I would have never searched for, was fetish latex wear, something, whatever, which I would have never typed in looking in China under fetish wear. So, yeah, so that's what I'm wearing is fetish wear.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You are wearing a costume then. Yeah. Okay. Again, just on the time and the money thing, I tend to go a little bit more on the upper end of the spectrum as cost-wise. And when people come to me, and even if it's a basic costume, they say, well, how much is it going to cost for materials? I usually set the bar about $300. And I know that, if you're looking into it, that can kind of seem like, whoa, $300, that's a lot of money. You have to realize that high-end, when you get to the high-end costumes, you might be spending $1,000 on just materials. So I usually I say, yeah, $100 is great, but I have never stayed within $100 range of anything. And I always like to go, okay, give yourself $300 to work with, to buy materials to start with, and give yourself 3 months. Go the 3-3 route. $300, 3 months to be able to start building and put something together. And that way you're not going to feel restricted by funds, and you're not going to be restricted by time. And that can be really frustrating because all of a sudden you go, wow, I'm not done, and I thought I could get this done in a week, and I thought I was only going to spend $100 on it.
Before you lock that into your memory, what do you think?
About,
Budget.
but I work on a really, really tight budget because that's just how I do. This costume probably started at $50. The things I've added to it since have probably put it up towards $150, $200. But I just do, I can be considered probably one of those crazy couponers because Joann's stores, they're meant to be coupon shopped. So I've learned the big sale periods of the year, and I have coupons coming, so I always plan out what fabric I need, and I plan out the sales, and I get it when I need to. And I'm just super budgeter.
No hobby's ever cheap, but if you do it right, you can spend upwards or downwards. The good thing about continuing a cosplay hobby is that you can reuse certain pieces of your costume, so the more you do it, you're not continuing to start over a brand new costume each and every time, unless they're so far apart where I'm just like, I don't know what you'd ever use this wingspan for, but I'm sure it's not geared to just her costume again. I'm sure she could probably use this, think of something that she could use this wingspan for again and not have to reconstruct that all over again. So if she comes to a costume and said, oh, well, I could use those white wings again, that just knocks that off her next budget. And so the more her resume opens up, that less that next costume will cost her. So
Yeah, you might only need 2 jewels for your next costume, but they come in sets of 10. It's like, well, okay, you got 8 more that you can do and build another costume. So don't be afraid of having a storeroom of supplies. And I do the same thing, right? I go back and I will oh, I need to build a costume. Oh, cool, I have this material left over. I'm going to throw it in my next one. And yeah, it decreases the budget time, and I don't have to go find stuff and run around.
Hi. So I've only cosplayed twice, but so I've been looking at materials, and honestly, you said Warbler is not easy, but that's one that I have been able to work with because I knew where to get it. So craft foam, Mary, you said where would you get larger sheets of it? I've seen that before, but small bits, so yeah, where would you find supplies
Everywhere.
like that in larger bits, online or?
I've only actually been able, I made my wings out of a 60 by 60 piece of craft foam. Joann's actually has this little secret row underneath all their craft foam that has rolls.
What?
And it's it sells out really fast because it's that awesome. And it's kind of hidden, but it's usually about $8.99 a roll. And I don't think the smaller Joann's carry it, so you'd have to go to a little bit bigger of a one. But that's
Okay.
where I found it.
I found 2-foot by 2-foot sheets at Ross as exercise mats. I mean, they're everywhere. Home Depot. I don't know if you have, what's that really weird generic hardware store that everyone talks about? Harbor Freight. I don't know if you guys have those up in here. But they're really cheap. Costco has sales on them all the time. They're everywhere. eBay is where I'm stuck in. I buy everything on eBay, and I don't work for them, so don't think that I'm trying to sell them.
That's okay, I do.
Well, we need to talk afterwards. But yeah, I mean, you can buy them anywhere. And they come in various thicknesses depending on what you want. There's different, I know everybody, if you've worked with it before, there's patterns on the back of them. There are different patterns because they are meant for gym mats or whatever, and that's for the slipping of them. So there are different diamond-shaped patterns depending on what you want. Sometimes you actually want to use that to your advantage of the costume too, because it is a pain in the butt to sand it down. Sanding is really good if you have a Dremel tool, so you can make great shapes out of that, out of the foam too. So you can use that to your advantage if you want to use that texture to that. So when you're shopping in that, you can look at the different texture options that you have.
Oh, thank you.
I don't have a watch on. Oh. 38. Hi. Just knock it over.
How did you make the crown?
Oh, this crown?
She
This is made
won
out
it.
of Warbler. So at the Warbler is the base, and then, which kind of, it's just a plastic that heats up by using a heat gun or a hair dryer. And the center gem is actually cast from resin. I did like a simple little mold that you dump the resin in, and it dries like that. And then the rest are just rhinestones.
If you're not familiar, how many of you guys are familiar with Warbler? A few people? It's a product that was created in Germany. It's a polymer wood-based product, actually. This helmet is made out of Warbler. Her crown. Are you wearing Warbler?
No, this is resin.
Okay. It's really cool. It's heat shaped. It comes in about, I don't know, it's a 1/16 of an inch thick. It's pretty thin. Usually it's best if you form it over something else, like Fun Foam or some other kind of foam product. It works really well. Yeah, you can bend it and shape it. It retains its shape afterwards, and it sticks to itself. W-O-R-B-L-A, Warbler.
W-O-R.
W-O-R-B-L-A, yeah. So it's really cool stuff. You can do a lot of really fun things with it, but it is expensive, and like Jade was saying, grab some other people and buy a sheet of it and experiment and do some little fun things with it first. So, got a question?
Hey, so my question is, and I'm just starting researching it, I started last night. I'd really like to do a cosplay as Shock T from Star Wars, and I'm not even sure how to start with the headdress. I've thought about doing like a plushy headdress out of pleather and like fiberfill, but I was like, that would get too hot, and then I was like, maybe liquid latex, maybe something else. So any suggestions on
I
that
work
kind
with
of?
liquid latex on all my cosplays. Heat is a problem. I don't exactly know the character. I apologize in advance. If I'm
She's part of the Jedi Council, long tendril hair.
Oh, okay. The blue.
Blue and red, yeah.
Okay.
My cheap option. would
Okay,
be
so
with,
that's
pleather and
I have the
fiberfill.
perfect. In fact, I have the answer for you. I don't know. There's no thumbnails. What I did. Hold on. Oh, there we go. Tail. Chamberlain's. Oh, spacebar. I ruined it again. While he fixes this, Chamberlain's tail was basically a plushie, which was basically a stuffed animal of a tail that I just used cotton. There it is. That I painted liquid latex on top of fabric that I'd stuffed with a pillow stuffing, and then painted liquid latex onto it. And then if you do the sponge technique, you can get texture if you want, or you can do it in nicer layers. You can also thin it out with ammonia. Don't ever thin it out with water because that won't work. I learned that mistake.
Depends on your latex, though.
Yeah, that's true.
Because I have water-based latex.
Yeah, but I buy the cheap stuff from eBay, wherever you went. But yeah, absolutely, this would be exactly what you're looking for, just not 6 feet long. But yeah, that's exactly how it would attach to your head. You'd have to work on that one a bit. But yeah, heat is definitely something that I'm constantly working with. You just have to know your limits. I've learned that these Under Armour make these tactical hoods that I learned halfway through wearing these big costumes that repel sweat. that's definitely something that you can look into. And I learned that by making friends with people that also wear big costumes, like these Halo guys, and I'm just like, what are these black hoods that you guys are constantly wearing, and what do they do? And I'm just like, I'm buying stock because I wear heavy costumes all the time. So yeah, that's one way to do it. Like I said, there's always a million ways to do it. That's just one thing that I know. How about you guys? Would you have suggestions?
As far as addressing heat, where I started figuring stuff like that out was researching problems that furries had, because a fursuit is probably going to be the warmest thing you'll ever come across. And some people have all these cooling systems wrapped around their body, or they'll lay one of those cool neck packs on their neck and before they put on their costume. The black dragon, I don't know if you guys saw it yesterday, wandering around, but that was mine. And I've just very selectively figured out how I can put in ventilation holes without ruining the structure. So like in the front, it's all cut out right under all the gold pieces, but no one else ever sees that, but it provides me both ventilation and better visibility. So like for your piece, maybe if you can structure it so that there's something that holds it off your head directly, so it's not all the stuffing right against your head.
So just right what she was saying, this helmet, when I started building this, the very first thing, I addressed your problem, because what it has in it is a band. It's a EVA foam band that fits right on my head, because I wanted to get the helmet away from my skin, away from my head, to give air circulation. And so anytime you're creating, and it can be anything in your costume, but especially headpieces, what you want to do is be able to get, you want to be able to get the material up away from your head to give air circulation on it. Okay, next question.
Hi there. I'm considering doing a Tron thing for the next con I go to, and I was wondering what the difficulties of L-wire and L-ribbon are, because, you know, you have to have the converters and everything strapped to you, and, you know, I'm just wondering what to anticipate, I suppose.
Okay, I do a lot of EDL work. I do a lot
EL
of
wire.
lighting.
Yeah.
I do a lot of lighting work on my costumes. And there's 3 different things that you can do for lighting on the tape. What you have to be careful of is that adhering it to yourself and the bendability of it. If you're using wire, it bends a lot easier. You can use hot glue to attach it to clothing, but it doesn't have the width like a Tron costume you're going to have to use. I know when they actually made the movie sets, one of the problems they had was the bendability of it. So you want to be, any part that you think is going to flex on your body, you want to be able to build in the joints there so that you don't have to worry about bending it and losing connectivity on the
Yeah, I did study the movie customs, and I noticed that wherever there's a joint, like, it sort of cuts out for a second.
Yep, yeah.
And also
On set, they had a huge problem with that.
Yeah, thank you.
But also pay attention, there's different types of EL wire, and they will tell you which are stiffer and which are a little more weak for bending around corners.
So you've mentioned that Warbler is a good thing to use. How durable is that?
Very.
Very durable.
It's pretty durable,
It's kinda
especially
solid
if you put
plastic.
multiple layers on it.
For $1, I'll let you punch him.
Hi, that's loud. I have 2 cosplay, like, ultimate dreams. One is a giant muscle suit like Venom, and another is Mr. Freeze with like a giant like iceberg kind of head. How would I go to making like the muscle suit and this iceberg out of like some sort of plastic or see-through?
A muscle suit would probably be like what she said, looking into like how fursuiters do some things, because an easy way to do that would just be to do sculpted foam that you stretch like a spandex type fabric over that's like skin colored. That's one way that you could approach it.
Okay, so we are
I
done.
think we have time for one more question.
Oh.
I found pinatas very useful as bases for helmets, but my question was this. My problem is, how do you start from a finished product and go to a pattern, or make a mold from something that's already finished without ruining the thing?
Without ruining it, I don't know if there's much you can do. Something I do when I'm want to make a head. I'm doing something for SakuraCon where I'm making, I don't know if anybody knows One Piece or knows a lot of anime, but I'm doing the bear from One Piece, Beepo, and I did his head out of foam. I mean, I wanted to make the fur that goes around his head, and I learned it from the furries. There's a lot of fur tutorials, and something that they do is they cover the complete thing in masking tape, and then they draw their lines where they want the cuts and the seams to be, and they cut the things from masking tape, and they peel those pieces of masking tape off, and then they lay those down on the fur to make their pattern pieces.
And an alternative to that, I come from building puppets, part of my background, and professional puppet makers, what they do is, like, let's say you want to create a head, and what they'll do is they'll take a block of high-density foam, you carve it out exactly what you want. And this could be anything. It could be a hat, it could be whatever, and you get your final product. And then they will take a razor blade and they will shave off, almost kind of like the same idea of the masking tape, and they'll shave off like 1/8 of an inch off that sculpture, cut it out, lay it down, and create your pattern for it. The cool thing is you don't have to make it to size, because there's these things called enlargers, like copy machine. So you can actually carve out something small, make it perfectly exactly like you want, make the pattern off it, put it on a piece of paper, get it enlarged to the size you want to, and reconstruct it.
I had one question. I am in the midst of trying to build a Crescent Moon staff for my Neo Queen Serenity cosplay, which I have for SakuraCon. I'm hoping to get done. I'm basically just doing a good old acrylic rod, and I bought some acrylic balls, and I'm having the top piece of it commissioned, so I'm kind of waiting for it to come. But when I get to the point I got all my parts, I was kind of told that maybe the best way, because I bought this glue because I went to an acrylic shop. So I bought a tube of this really, glue, and they said, hey, use this. They were telling me to sand each of down, like sand all the parts down, and then glue it. But they were also telling me about going to Home Depot and buying like some screws and trying to put some screws. Because my thought was if there was a way I could put a screw basically where the rod is and where I start putting the balls, if I could put a screw in there so I could just like unscrew it and make it way easier to transport, because right now it's pretty tall, just the rod itself is tall. So I was trying to figure out a way to make it durable, so if I can get it finished in time, it's not going to end up breaking.
Is it a see-through acrylic?
Pardon me?
Is it a see-through acrylic?
Yeah, it is. Because it's supposed to be clear, and then I'm having the Crescent Moon pieces being done in dyed yellow, so acrylic yellow, and then she had a crystal with a battery in it, so it's a round one, so it'll flash different colors when you turn it on, so it'll look really cool.
I would suggest if you're doing something like that, make it as modular as you can.
Maybe take it and have them cut the rod itself down shorter.
See if there's dowels that you can do, like putting not even a screw, but like a dowels that just come together and then come apart.
You mean like buy a dowel in between those two parts, so I could just somehow unscrew it, and so I could easily transport
just snap
it
together and snap apart like Legos.
And you can get clear pipe from tap plastic. So when you get all the pieces together, go and fit all the pieces.
That's where I bought the stuff so far. Like material was from Tap Plastics, but they didn't say anything about like doing by doing a clear something I could screw basically, or I could just attach to the rod, make life easier instead of trying to like drill a hole or
just get a tap and die set and find the pieces that will fit together.
Then when I put the ball, screw it. Then when I put the start with the ball there, should I just glue it to that where I can unscrew it, or do I have to? Well, I see, because it would be open, so I could just glue the ball and then like maybe put something on top and then do something like that, and then I could just boop.
Okay.
I'm gonna go ahead and jump in here.
Please do.
Don't forget your question, because we're at the end of. Man, 50 minutes just doesn't go by so fast. A couple of us have to run to the competition. I'd encourage you guys, there's going to be some amazing costumes there tonight at the competition over the main hall, and we got to run over there right now. But Ryan is going to stick around here if you have any questions. You can look at us up online. My name is Brian Morris. You can look on Facebook for Zak Labs, ZAKLABS. And you can connect with us also on Facebook or email us. And we'd love to be able to answer questions for you more than we could here just in this 50 minutes.
And I actually also have business cards with me if anyone does not want to come and grab one, you can look me up as Arctic Phoenix Studios. Or if the quick way, just look up Loki scarves and you'll find one of 2 sellers on Etsy, and Arctic Phoenix Studios is me. That's the fastest way, guaranteed. But the general search will turn up everything.
Good luck,
Thank
guys.
you. Thanks for your help. I'll come get some cards too.